18 months ago, I started my search for the perfect daily driver under $20,000 for my wife, and for me, of course. And when you're an enthusiast like I am, the perfect daily driver doesn't look like a RAV4. It doesn't look like a Toyota Highlander or a Camry. It's got to have something special. Something like maybe twin turbos, maybe it's a diesel, maybe it's got more torque than most vehicles on the road, and maybe it's an e70 X5 diesel. 3 months later, I found a good one. And we've owned it for over a year at this point. And in today's video, I'm gonna give you a walk around of the outside and show you everything that I love about the e70 X5. We're gonna go inside and show you all the awesome features that give it so much luxury, comfort, and performance. And then we're obviously gonna take it for a rip or two. At the very end, I'm gonna give you guys some insight too into what you need to watch out for. Just things that might not be too great about owning one. Oh man, just to talk about the outside, it's one of my favorite things about it. Really, any BMW X5 looks awesome. The e70, in my opinion, just has this special road presence that made me fall in love with them. I've liked them for a long time, and after spending this much time in close contact with them, I like it even more. It's got these huge arches on the front, and it has them on the back. They just make it feel extremely sporty. It has some signature BMW design elements like the Hofmeister kink here. You'll find that on my E36 M3 as well. And this one, being the LCI version, has different front and rear bumpers, these really cool signature taillights, and of course, the halos in the front. Now let's talk about the size. This thing will seat 5 people. There are some that have fold-up seats in the rear where you can seat 2 more, but I think the size is perfect for a small to medium-sized family. Now, one of the big reasons I mentioned I bought this is I think it's a great vehicle for enthusiasts, and the engine options are just one of the many reasons why. So this diesel was available all the way from the beginning of the e70 generation, pre-LCI. It is a 3-liter compound twin-turbo diesel that has 265 horsepower and 425 foot-pounds of torque stock. You can tune it to have quite a bit more, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Early versions also had a gas straight-six naturally aspirated engine, the N52, that is one of BMW's best modern naturally aspirated engines and is very reliable. The LCI versions got a turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, the N55, which is also a pretty reliable engine if you take really good care of it, but for some reason the N55s in these e70 X5s had a little more problems than they had in other cars like the 3 Series. Now, the most powerful version, which I think is the one you've really got to stay away from, is the twin-turbo V8 that came in both the pre-LCI and the LCI versions. You don't want to get it. It's got a ton of power and it's really great to drive when it's doing good, but it just suffered from a lot of problems. It was, BMW's early days of twin-turbo V8s. They had a lot of issues with oil consumption, which led to a lot of issues with oil starvation, blown engines, lots of expensive labor to get them fixed. As I mentioned, once they're sorted, they're awesome to drive, but long-term, they're probably not the best option, at least in my opinion. When you're talking about performance and reliability, the M57 diesel is the one to get. There are some caveats, and one reason I got the diesel is because where I live, I'm lucky enough that I can remove the things that are problematic about owning a modern diesel, if you know what I mean. And what better time than now to talk about one of the big reasons I love the M57, and that's its crazy easy tunability and how much performance you get. So I have a tune from Tunezilla. I got a little tablet with it so you can easily swap between the tunes, but check out these numbers. Of course, like I mentioned, we have the stock power and torque right here, 265, 425. This is a simple tune. The ones I'm going to show you, stock, stage 1, and stage 2, are all without any hardware upgrades. Just look at the numbers, the increases that you get with a tune only in stage 1. The tune that I'm running right now is the stage 2, and that gives me all the way to 352 horsepower and 515 foot-pounds of torque. Once you get to stage 2.5, 2.9, these are ones where you need to have a downpipe, just the downpipe, nothing with the fuel system. And you can go all the way from 265 to 393 horsepower, and all the way from 425 foot-pounds of torque to 606 foot-pounds. That's a heck of a deal. It's no secret that pretty much every BMW sounds good, but this M57 sounds really cool and unique. It's like a little Cummins. It sounds like it should be a big old diesel truck. When you're inside of it driving, it definitely sounds a lot bigger than a 3-liter. And even the exhaust when it's stock sounds pretty good. And if you think that sounds good, listen to what they're like when you just put on a downpipe. Pretty sweet, isn't it? The comfort and convenience available is plentiful. One of the biggest things I love about this car is the comfort access. You see right here on the door handle, there's some ridges. If I touch it, it locks all the doors, and all I've got to do is touch my hand to the handle, and it unlocks the doors. Not only that, there's some other neat features with the door handles, like lights underneath them that will welcome you as you approach the vehicle and unlock it, and illuminate the car around you. And if you're saying to yourself, hey, I've driven other cars like that, it's not that special, you got to realize how much or how little you can buy these vehicles for. I'll tell you how much I paid for mine at the end, but this was a special example that I purchased a year ago with only 50,000 miles on a 2012. Pretty rare. Something else a lot of people appreciate about the BMW X5 is the split rear tailgate. Check this out. Just a little tap on the pad underneath the rear tailgate. Power opens, but only half of it. What happens to this half? Well, you can walk right up, pull the handle, and it soft releases to a nice place that you can load stuff into the back. You can even sit on to hang out like I like to do and be out of the weather. If it's raining, or if you just want to hang out and have some lunch or a snack, maybe some ice cream in the summer, you're covered and shaded by the top of the hatch, and then you're chilling on the bottom. The space in the rear is also really good. You can see some of the stuff that we keep in here just as emergency stuff. My camera bag, I still got plenty of space underneath this hatch. Mine was optioned with the spare, so I don't have to run flats, and there's some storage space under there too. If I'm going to recommend one, I say go for the LCI like I did. If nothing, then just for the cool headlights and taillights. BMW always has the signature halos. They're not on right now, even though it kind of looks like they are from the light hitting them. But these don't only look cool, they have a crazy good function with the normal driving lights. This light right here, as you turn the steering wheel back and forth while you're driving, it will look around corners early, so you can sort of see what's around the curve. It's really nice at night, especially if you live in the mountains like I do, or places with curvy roads, where it makes a lot of sense to be able to see where you're going. There could be deer, there could be a rock in the road or some object, and it just feels cool doing it. It makes me feel a lot more safe, especially when I'm going fast. All right, sitting in the X5, it is a good place to be. I'm 6'4", not a small guy. And I feel like I have so much space in this E70. I don't feel cramped at all, and a lot of these mid-sized to smaller SUVs, they can feel pretty cramped, don't have enough legroom, you're sitting too close to the passenger. Not the case in the E70. And a lot of our driving has been long distance, right from the start. I live in Utah. I found this car in New York. So I flew to New York and drove it all the way home, just about 3,000 miles. To start off our first experiences with the E70 X5, and I loved it. It cruises effortlessly with the power and torque that the diesel has, and it got really good gas mileage. When it had the stock tune on it, and it gets better as you tune it, crazy enough, you add power, it gets better fuel economy. Even if you do the downpipe, it gets way better. But I averaged about 26.5 mpg all the way from New York to Utah, and that's not too bad. We also drive this car multiple times a year from northern Utah to southern Utah. It's about a 4.5 to 5 hour drive, and it just makes it so effortless and comfortable. There's a lot of high altitude, low altitude, you're gaining going up big hills, you're passing a lot of vehicles, and this thing doesn't skip a beat. It doesn't have to downshift when you're going up hills. If you've ever driven something like a lifted Tacoma or a lifted 4Runner, something that's just gutless up hills, especially when it's loaded with stuff inside, it strains you. It's almost exhausting. You have to dip your foot in it so much, the engine's downshifting, you can tell it's working really hard. Not so in the E70 X5. This thing is definitely a sport luxury SUV, and there's a lot to love about it. And you expect that out of a BMW. You expect it to make you feel special and sporty inside. We'll get more into that later as we're driving, but you also expect to have some luxury. Check out some of these cool features. First of all, it is refined. I don't know if you can tell by how I'm talking in here, but it is nice and quiet. It feels isolated, and it's that way on the road as well. The steering wheel is nice and fat. It's got a good sporty grip with all of these buttons easily reachable. Speaking of comfort, heated steering wheel that heats up really fast. If you live in cold climates, BMWs are so good to have. They heat up quickly. The steering wheel is really nice and warm. This one's optioned with heated front seats. The convenience and comfort doesn't end in the front seats either and makes its way to the back too. It also can be optioned with the rear individual climate control, independent for both passengers. Mine has the heated seats. And there's also a very nice center armrest that can come down to rest your arms on and even expose some cup holders. And if your rear seat passengers are getting a little fatigued by the sun, it's got nice, easy usable sunshades. And I don't know, for some reason, these make me feel like I'm on an airplane. The stereo itself, oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. It's not the best stereo in the world, but for a BMW of this age, for any car of this age especially, it's got a really good sound. It has good bass, it's really clear, has a ton of speakers surrounding you, and I think most people are gonna be pretty happy with how it sounds. This isn't the screen that comes in its stock. It comes with one that's quite a bit smaller, doesn't have Android Auto or anything, but you can easily upgrade to one that looks good, like it belongs here from the factory. This is designed to look like the one that comes in the next generation X5, the F15, and if people don't know about these cars, they'd never get in here and know that that was aftermarket. Being lucky, living in a scenic area like I do, you want to have nice views when you're driving around, and sometimes you want to let in the sun. And this huge sunroof will let you do just that. You open it, and it just doesn't stop moving. Even when you're sitting in the back, it gives the back passengers a really good view. There's a lot of tunability in the interior as well. It doesn't end with the engine. I've got this little OBD2 little programmer here that I can plug in, and I use Beamer code on my phone, and you can change a lot of things, customize a lot of things, like being able to actually close the hatch from the button on the inside, making the blinker tick 5 times instead of just 3, allow the screen to let you play movies while you're driving. Not that I'd watch them, but my passenger might. There's really so much you can do. I'm not even gonna try to go into it. If you're interested, look into it. But it really allows you just to make the BMW your own, just the way you like it. Okay, this is the best thing to be doing in the X5, driving it. Let's turn the traction control off. Do a little boosted launch. Oh, whoa! Jeez. Gosh. Whoa, time to slow down. Gosh, this thing is a handful. That's a good example about what I mean about this car being effortless to drive. It has so much power and torque. You're gonna beat a WRX at a stoplight. You're gonna beat some teenager in a GTI, and you're gonna beat most SUVs, especially once it's tuned. Maybe except for, of course, the stuff like the SRT Dodges, the Jeeps and stuff like that. Maybe even some of the ST Fords if they're tuned. But this thing rips. Passing people when you're on the freeway, especially in like city traffic, this thing is zippy. It feels so peppy and quick, and that's one of the reasons I bought it for my wife, because she likes cars that have a little bit of pep, and so do I, so I'm not gonna argue with that. Speaking about the steering, oh my gosh, you guys have seen that I live in the mountains. I drive a lot of canyon roads. This does not drive like an SUV. It drives kind of like a sports car. I'm not gonna say it drives like a sports car, because it really doesn't, but for an SUV, it is surprisingly sporty. Like, I can take turns like that and dive into them pretty good, and it stays decently flat. It doesn't make you feel like you gotta slow down, like, oh my gosh, I'm coming up to a corner, like you would in a lot of other SUVs. So it's a really fun experience to drive. The steering is nice and tight. You've got both hands gripped on this nice fat steering wheel, and it gives you pretty decent feedback. The steering ratio is decently quick, and so you're not having a ton of input into the steering wheel to get it to go where you want to. And just listen to that diesel. Oh my gosh. The torque is so addicting. That's the thing, is these get such good gas mileage. With it too, now I can get about 30 on the highway, but I don't get that because I'm always dipping into the throttle because it feels so punchy. Man, and with this diesel, you would think that it would kind of die out as it got to high RPMs, but it just keeps going, especially with the tune. You got the smaller turbo that gives you the kick at the start with a bunch of torque, and then at 3,000 RPMs, all the way up to about 5,000 RPMs, that low pressure turbo, the big turbo, really keeps steaming like a freight train. In fact, it's funny, my wife the other day was like, Gavin, I got going 100 miles an hour the other day when I was passing somebody. I didn't even know it. And that's how it is. It gets going so quick, so easy, so fast, that just passing someone quickly on the freeway, you gotta watch your right foot a little bit. But you know what? When you don't want to be ripping, you don't want to be going fast, Set the cruise control, which has braking by the way, and just relax. This thing will eat up the miles, it'll cruise, it won't ever feel strained, and you'll be able to just relax in quiet comfort, smooth and refined when you want it to be, but exciting and punchy when you want it to be as well. Oh man. If you've never driven an E70, get your butt in the seat of one. And if you've never driven a diesel, this is a great one to introduce yourself to. You're gonna see all of the things that I did that made me fall in love with diesels. So much low end torque to get around. Because of the compound turbos, it's really responsive. There's not really turbo lag. It rips around, gets you where you wanna go. You can be aggressive in traffic if you need to be. And if you wanna just hang out, it'll be good at that too. I hope you enjoyed the introduction into our E70 X5 diesel that we love. This is gonna be a long-term vehicle. I plan to keep this well over 100,000 miles, which is one reason why I bought what I did. If I had to describe in one word the character of the E70 X5, I would say confidence. It's kind of like that person that's really good at some sport, whether it's skiing or snowboarding or something else, where they just make it look really easy. They're not trembling or shaking or straining. They just do it effortlessly. That's what it feels like driving this car. Now in today's video, we didn't really have time to go over all the quirks, little things that could go wrong with each individual engine, things in the interior and exterior. I want to give that to you in great detail, so I'm going to dedicate that to its own video. If you're interested in potentially owning an E70, make sure that you hit the subscribe button to stick around for that. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.